Ladies and gentlemen, if we can please find seats, we're going to be beginning services now. Thank you so much.
Please.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services, if we can please kindly turn off all cell phones or electronic devices, or please place them on silent. Thank you.
We're here this morning to pay our final respects, Kavod Acharon, to Sam Glassman, Shmuel Ben Anshel. And we begin the service by connecting to our faith, to our tradition with the recitation of Psalms. We begin with Psalm 1, Tehillim Mizmor Aleph. Ashrei Ha'ish, Asher lo halach ba'atzat risha'im v'derech hatim lo amad, uv'moshav leitzim lo yashav, kim b'torat Adonai chefzo v'torato yageh yomam v'layla. V'ya k'eit shatul al palgei mayim, asher piryo yitain bito, v'aleu lo yibo, v'chol asher yaseh yatzliach. Lochein harisha'im kim kamotz asher tedefenu ruach, al kein lo yakum risha'im b'mishpat v'chateim b'adat tzadikim, ki yodei Adonai derech tzadikim, v'derech risha'im toved. Happy is the one who has not followed the counsel of the wicked, nor stood in the path of sinners, nor sat in the company of the scornful. Rather, that one's delight is in the Torah of the Lord, meditating in God's Torah day and night. And will be like a tree planted by streams of water that yields its fruit in season, whose leaf will not wither, and whatever that one does prospers. Continue with Psalm 23. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsar, Benot desha yarbitzeni al me'menuchot yinahaleni. Nafshi yeshovev yancheni b'magalei tzedek leman shemo, gam ki elech begeit salmavet, lo irara ki ata imadi. Shiftecha mishantecha, hema yanachamuni, ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged tzorai, dishanta b'shemen roshi kosi rivaya, achtov v'chesed yurdifuni kol yimei chayai, v'shafti b'veit Adonai le'orech yamim. A song of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not lack. God causes me to lie down in lush pastures. God leads me beside tranquil waters. God restores my soul and guides me in the righteous paths of for God's name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your scepter and staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in full view of my adversaries. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life. I shall dwell in the house of the Lord for the length of days. Now I'm going to ask first David, then Jane, and then Alana to share some words.
I'm David, the youngest of the three children of my dad. Many of you know that at Jane's behest, a couple years ago, I moved down to Florida to look after my dad in his final years when we heard that he wasn't doing as well as we had hoped. He was doing all right, but just helping him organize things and making sure he gets to his doctor's appointments and things of that nature. So I was cleaning up the condo and organizing his papers that were scattered about. One of the papers that I found scattered about was something titled Eulogy for Sam Glassman. I moved there 2 years ago. He typed his own eulogy. So I asked everyone if it'd be appropriate to kind of abide by his wishes and read his own eulogy. And so here it is. And it's not too long, about 3/4 of a page. And then I'll add some feelings of my own experiences after that. Eulogy for Sam Glassman. Sam Glassman was born in South Philadelphia, June 20, 1930. He was named Shmuel Herb Anshel. He started George Washington Elementary School at age 6. He was skipped ahead 1 year because it was the practice to prevent overcrowding. Sam did very well in school and became the treasurer, selling stamps to the other students for the war effort. He collected newspapers, tinfoil, and actually bought a war bond for $18.75. He was promoted to Furness Junior High School and then the South Philadelphia High School for boys. When Sam graduated from high school, the draft was in place. Rather than wait to be called, Sam joined the United States Army Air Corps. He was promised a 36-week course in radio mechanics after completing basic training. The United States Army Air Corps kept their promise as Sam graduated radio mechanics school. He was given a furlough and transferred to Hamilton Field, California. Sam was excellent in his duties and was promoted regularly. He became the non-commissioned officer in charge of communications during the Korean War. Sam was discharged from the Air Force as a staff sergeant in October 1951, hence the flag that you see here. Sam continued his education at night, working for the General Electric Company and the DuPont Company. He met his wife at Arthur Murray during a dance party. They got married on television and raised 3 children and 5 grandchildren. Sam overcame many physical ailments and was given an early retirement. In February 1992, Sam drove his 1989 auto to Florida. Sam drove up the coast every 3 months for about 3 years. His wife wanted to continue teaching, so they got divorced. Sam enjoyed ballroom dancing and golf for the next 25 years. During Sam Glassman's lifetime, he honored his family and the Jewish faith. Sam was the president of the Fox Chase Jewish Community Center for 5 years and a member of Sharei Shemayim Synagogue for 25 years. A few of my memories with my father that I thought I'd share. One that extends back to my childhood is that I kind of knew early on that he was a ladies' man. The ballroom dancing that he described whenever he went through affairs, he and my mom really knew how to cut a rug at bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs dance. And he would say to me as a kid, he'd say these stories of, did I ever tell you the time that I dated Pocahontas? All this crazy stuff. And the last couple of years, I'd drive in the H&R Block to do his taxes with the same lady named Patricia there in Florida. He used to do his own taxes for a long time and other people's taxes, but with the age that he was at, he wasn't able to do his own taxes after a while. He would comment, I'd sit there with him and H&R Block, and he'd comment to the lady during his taxes, like, did you have a manicure? Nice nails, and just things like this that always trying to charm people. As late as last week, when he started signing him up for hospice care at home, he was telling the hospice worker that was interviewing him, I've been into ballroom dancing and all this sort of stuff. So another one of his interests was car maintenance. When I got to be driving age in my teens, he and my mom bought me a 1966 classic red Ford Mustang for $250. Sold it when I finished school 7 years later for $2,000, I think. So he made improvements, knew how to do car maintenance very well on weekends. And my friends Lee and Dave, who are here, I'm sure remember us tooling around in my Mustang proudly. I was the only one in the neighborhood with a classic old sporty car like that. We had some fun. Like a lot of American dads, he spent time in the backyard with me having a catch. If I got the glove on the ball but didn't quite catch it, no matter how crazy, he would throw it back to me and I'd have to lunge for it. If it went off the tip of my glove, he'd say, you got leather on it, you got to catch it. And I became a pretty good defensive player in Little League as a result of his advice of, if you get some leather on the ball, you better catch it. Back then, when we were having a catch back in the 1970s, after about 15 minutes or so, he'd say, I'm out of breath, let's go back inside. He was a little out of shape and things. But to his credit, he stopped smoking, took the advice of his doctors, went through some medical procedures, took the advice by exercising, changing his diet, eating wheat germ in the morning, walking with our neighbor around the block all the time. And he lived to be 93. So there you go. It's never too late to live a healthy lifestyle and change your ways. I mean, he had good days and bad days, life. I remember when I was a teenager and we went up on a notorious family road trip to New England and Canada to have Jane look at colleges. And we stopped in New Hampshire for breakfast and had an all-you-can-eat pancake place. And he was, since his military days, I think, kind of punctual in nature. He was an estimator by trade, and he would estimate like the time that it would take to get from this state to Canada to this state. And if you plan to leave at 8 o'clock a.m., you want to leave at 8 a.m. with the luggage in the car. But some of the family members weren't as punctual as him. And this particular day, I wanted to take advantage of all-you-can-eat pancakes, because that's what it said, and I love pancakes. And after I was ready to order the third batch of pancakes, my father said to my mother, "If your son orders any more pancakes, I'm leaving him in New Hampshire. Let's go." Towards the end of his life, he wasn't really up on the days of the week and holidays, kind of confusing things. This past December of 2023, he started saying to me, "Is anyone coming over for Thanksgiving?" I was like, "No, Dad, Thanksgiving already came and went, no." And every couple weeks or so, he'd say to me or the home health aide that would help him out, "Yeah, I'm going to be having Thanksgiving turkey tonight." And there's no Thanksgiving turkey. Finally, I decided I'm going to go to the store, buy him a little TV dinner of turkey and mashed potatoes. He wasn't really eating very well toward the end. He's having trouble swallowing, had a very small appetite. But just about a week ago, said, "We have this in the freezer, Dad. It's February, you know. You want this TV dinner, turkey and mashed potato?" "Yeah, I'll have it." Ate the whole thing. Really surprised me. He finally got, in February of 24, he got his Thanksgiving turkey. Finally, I know some of you might know that one of his favorite hobbies was golf. Taught me how to play golf at Somerton Springs on Bustleton Avenue when I was a teenager. He enjoyed watching golf on TV. He knew Jack Nicklaus, Tiger Woods, Freddie Couples. And it's kind of ironic that the day he died, he was in his recliner chair in his condo at home, watching the Golf Channel, and he just slowly slipped on into the afterlife. So, we'll miss him, and that's about all I've got to say for right now. Thanks for coming.
I ask Jane to come up to say a few words.
Well, not only did my father write his eulogy, he also wrote an autobiography. So I won't read all of it to you, but I will share a couple of his stories in his autobiography. He had documents, dates, pictures. He wrote it in 2003. His parents, Anshul and Golda, came from Bucharest, Romania, with their first baby in 1922. They joined his mother's father in Philadelphia. His siblings, Minnie, Joe, Jenny, and Leah, have unfortunately all passed away. Dad was the youngest of 5. He writes that they lived in a 3-story brick row home with few to no amenities. For example, he slept in a crib with the end pickets taken out, and his legs were supported on a chair. He slept on the landing outside of his parents' bedroom. Their heater was a coal stove in the basement on a dirt floor. His job was to shake the grates and add coal when he came home from school. In the summer, they slept across the street in the park until the house cooled off. His grandfather had a laundry business, and Dad mentions that every New Year's Day, the extended family would visit the grandfather to watch the Mummers Parade as it went down 2nd Street. They had a good time running in and out of the laundry, staying warm, while waiting for the next Mummer unit to arrive. And I've continued that tradition of watching the parade annually. I've been known to tape it so I don't miss it, especially the string bands, and my kids and grandkids now watch it as well. He wrote that he helped his father out. They would visit residents in the settlement houses who needed their dented samovars or brass candlesticks cleaned. The samovars would get fixed. His father was a coppersmith and also apparently could create kitchen utensils by hand. Dad also did enjoy helping others and did some volunteer work in his life. He was our household handyman as well. He made a chessboard and a toy storage chest out of wood that he attached to the combination ping pong pool table that we had in our basement. As David mentioned, an interesting fact is that he and my mom met at Arthur Murray Dance Studio. He filled up her dance card and told her mother that he planned to marry her. My mother held him off for a number of months, but eventually she agreed. They were probably their happiest when they were dancing. He taught me to dance the cha-cha and the box step, and it's been in my blood ever since. They used to teach other couples down in the basement when we lived in Philadelphia on Hartel Avenue. As David mentioned, my dad was a charmer, very friendly and outgoing with anyone he'd meet, happy to tell all kinds of creative stories. Our mother, Marilyn, passed away in 2005, but she had told the story of how they met to a TV show called Bride and Groom, and they were selected to be married on that show in New York City. They were given gifts, including appliances, a year's supply of Jergens lotion, and a week-long honeymoon in the Poconos. Our son Jeff has posted the 15-minute segment from the show on YouTube, if anyone would like to see it. It's really amazing to watch what they were like at that time. As David mentioned, cars were important to him. Dad taught me to drive on his '65 Dodge. He was very attached to his cars and worked on maintaining them. He even taught me how to fix a stalled car by putting a pencil in the choke, which I had to do a number of times and lift the hood on the way to school. When I was a senior in high school in 1975, I did a program in Philadelphia shadowing a psychologist for 6 months. We drove to the train together, and he'd share some of his life experiences. We got, I would say, closer during that time, having that privacy in the car. And I believe he inadvertently helped me hone my skills as a listener. I remember my parents driving me to Penn State University, and I have to admit that the 4-hour drive sitting in the front seat between my parents with all my possessions in the back seat and the trunk is not one of my favorite memories. In 1980, he had a triple cardiac bypass, which prompted him to change his diet and start to exercise. As Dave mentioned, it was probably also what motivated him to make other changes in his life. He had a way with words. When marrying me off in 1987, he said to Eugene, "She's all yours." That's one of Eugene's favorite lines. He wonders where he can get a refund. Another feature of my dad's personality is he lived his life the way he wanted. When he was offered early retirement at almost 62, he took it, decided to move to Florida, as you've heard. He moved in 1992. Our mother was not ready for that lifestyle, as she still enjoyed teaching. He decided to move on, and they eventually divorced in 1998. He was rarely alone, as he met other companions, either dancing or golfing. He did come to Philadelphia and Georgia to see his grandchildren and us. He was proud of their accomplishments and mine. Whenever I'd accompany him to a medical appointment, he'd say, "My daughter is a doctor." He lived a long, full life, and he will be missed. My sister, Gail, would have wanted to be here, but she just had hip surgery. So Alana is going to say some words on her behalf that Gail has shared with us.
Hi, I'm Alana. I hope that I do these words justice, but my Aunt Gail sent these words for me to share today. So pretend that I'm speaking as her. She writes, as I was contemplating how to put into words my feelings for my daddy, again, it occurred to me that I have learned a host of things from watching him interact with me and my siblings over the years. Here are just a few of my positive memories. I saw my dad leave early every morning to drive to Delaware in ice and snow some days, and then arrive back home to have dinner with his family. There were some days he was forced to drive 2 hours in winter weather just to help provide for his family. I saw my daddy's commitment to us and his dedication to provide for his family. I saw my daddy's friendliness to complete strangers when we would go for a drive, and he would roll down his car window when he stopped at a red light, and he would begin to conversate with complete strangers. I recall being embarrassed and trying to scooch down in my seat in the car because I didn't understand how he could talk to people he did not know. Now, years later, I find myself doing very similar things. My dad's friendliness was something I learned from him and have now passed on to my children. I would describe my younger self as a daddy's girl. I would try to locate him and then hang around him, sometimes follow him to wherever he was working around the house. If he was outside working under the hood of a car, I would be nearby, not trying to pester him, but just trying to hang out with him. I was amazed by how talented he was. He could fix almost anything, and I was especially intrigued by his ability to fix things that we broke around the house. I have a memory of heading down to our basement where his workshop was located and leaving something on his table there. Then the next day, it was magically repaired and delivered back upstairs for us to use again. It seemed to me that my daddy could do anything. To me, he was a superhero. Most evenings after dinner, I can recall going downstairs to play ping pong or shoot pool, as he conveniently built a ping pong table that sat on top of the pool table they had purchased years before. The opportunity to relax after dinner and play a game with my daddy still sits with me well, and I learned from him that I had to improve myself to get better at a sport because my dad was not someone that was going to let me win. When I did win a game of pool or ping pong one day, it was because I had earned it. I have yet another memory of my dad fixing up old cars that did not work, and then my mom selling those cars to happy strangers who were so proud to become car owners because the prices were so affordable. I learned to help others and not take advantage of them financially. Over the course of my lifetime, I've realized that I've learned a lot from watching my dad. He was a complicated man, but his real self. He did not try to put on airs. He was dedicated, hardworking, gentle with me when I needed him to be, stern when I did something wrong. He sacrificed a lot for his children and wife and sought to make the world a better place by showing compassion, helpfulness, and friendliness to those who really needed it. The world was a better place because my dad was here. He will be sorely missed. Thank you. From Aunt Gail.
I never had the opportunity to meet Sam Glassman, Shmuel Ben Anshel. I almost feel like I did, getting to see so many of the various documents that he collected for the family over the years, and autobiography, writing his own eulogy. And in speaking with some of the family members and getting to watch his wedding last night on YouTube, he reminds me of someone that I'm a little bit more familiar with, namely David HaMelech, King David. King David was also the youngest in family. I think it was 7 or 8, but youngest in his family. I think he also might have had to sleep on a bed that didn't quite fit his size. And when Samuel and Shmuel Hanavi came to anoint him, he went to the whole family and said, okay, who is it? Is it this one, this one, this one? They had to go, oh, no, 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 it's David. He's out in the field. Brought him in. And David also, at that point, went to fight in the military. I think he might have also fudged on his age a little bit, as I believe Sam may have when he went to join the army at the age of 17. Really wouldn't have been able to go until a year later, but he claims he lied about his age to get in early. Certainly, the famous story of David and Goliath speaks very powerfully in terms of David's patriotism and Sam's patriotism, certainly joining the army even without being asked. It's mentioned about his volunteer opportunities. His family also shared with me that he volunteered in Israel in 1992 on a kibbutz through Sarel. So also a connection to the land of Israel, one that King David and Sam share. He was a charmer, as was mentioned over and again. Charmed their mother by filling out her entire dance card. Right there, I think the rules were you were only supposed to fill in one dance, right? And he said, no, I got them all, I know them all, very confident. David also was a very confident individual. And he was also a dancer, by the way, King David. I don't know if most people know that. But when the ark was returned back from the Philistines, so they had to welcome it in the appropriate fashion. And the verse tells us, David mecharker b'chol oz, that David danced unbelievably. He pulled out all the dance moves. I'm not sure exactly which dances they were doing back then. I don't know that it was the box step or any, I don't know. But he did it all. And it didn't matter what anyone said. Even his own wife at the point told him, you know, you're going a little bit, it's too strong, it's too much. And he said, this is what I have to do. He lived his life the way that he needed to. He danced the way that he needed to. And Sam had a similar way of going about things, living his life in the way that he wanted to, in his way. Sam was as was mentioned, the president of the Fox Chase Community Center. I think he was the president of his synagogue as well. He even helped to build his synagogue. We heard many different projects that Sam was involved in, the workshop in the basement, working on cars and all of those sorts of things. David also wanted to build a synagogue. You might have heard of it, the temple. He wasn't able to, but he did as much as he could to prepare for that moment, and was certainly a builder of Jerusalem, of Ir David, the city of David, and ultimately the temple is called Beit David, a house of David, in his name because of his interest and his readiness to step up and to build. David was a survivor, as Sam was. Jane mentioned the bypass surgery in 1980. I think there was another one, right, about 15 years ago as well. And the fact that he changed his lifestyle, recognizing that there was more to do, there were more things to accomplish, there was more life to live, that he's able to do that. Jane gives credit to Gail also in helping him to quit smoking. David was also a survivor. He survived his predecessor, King Saul, survived a revolt from his son, Absalom. And David also recognized when he had to shift gears and change his path towards better days. I think one of the elements that we see also is how important Sam's family was to him. I thought it was very fascinating that he mentioned in his eulogy that he raised 3 children and 5 grandchildren. He raised them. He raised the 5 grandchildren. He made an effort also to be available to his nieces and nephews. He even gave away his niece Beth at her wedding. And he says at the conclusion of his eulogy, he honored his family. That was something that was so important to him. And you honored him as well. And David, in particular, I want to note your efforts towards the end of his life, taking such incredible care of him in the final years. really a beautiful tribute to your father. You know, it's interesting that Sam wrote an autobiography. He wrote up all of the things from his vantage point, maybe some a little bit embellished, some of the stories as he told them in earlier years. Wrote his own eulogy, had his wedding on national television, and also, as Jane, you said, it had a way with words. David is the sweet singer of Israel, the writer of the Psalms, Tehillim. And David, I don't think it's a coincidence that he was coming back to Thanksgiving over and again in the final months of his life, because he was appreciative of a life that he felt that he lived well, that he lived his way, and that he was thankful. So he was ready for that turkey. He was ready to be in that mode of thanksgiving because it was always Thanksgiving. And very similar to David as well, who expresses his thanksgiving even through the trials, even through the difficulties, surviving through challenging times, through long days at work. David also had long days at work. I imagine being the king of Israel, not such an easy job. And he wrote, and he expressed, and he put it out there. So we know the story of David, King David, and we know the story of Sam Glassman because he wrote it down for us, because he shared it and he saved it for us to be able to carry on a legacy of a life lived in full, a life lived his way, and as he said, honoring his family and the Jewish faith. So for Jane and Eugene, for Gail and Donald, for David, for the grandchildren he raised, Luke, Hannah, Ashton and Ray, Jeff and Sharon, Alana and Kyle, and for the great-grandchildren, Gabby and Adam, for extended family and friends, we have so much to remember, so many beautiful memories to recall that are written down for us in Sam's Psalms. And such beautiful memories to carry along, to hold in our hearts and in our souls for the rest of our lives. May his memory forever be a blessing. Going to now ask everyone to please rise as we recite the Kel Maleh, the memorial prayer. El Maleh Rachamim Shochein Bamromim Hamtzei Menucha Nechona Al Kanfei Hashchina B'malot Kedoshim Utorim Kazarakia Masirim Es Nishmaz Shmuel Ben Anshol Shalach Lolamo Bavor asher nachnu mispalim bad askarat nishmato Bigan Eden temenu chaso Lachein balarachamim Yastireu b'seter kanafav liolamim V'yitzor b'tzor achayim es nishmaso Adonai hu nachalaso V'anuach b'shalom mishkavo V'nomar Amen. God, full of compassion, who dwells on high, grant proper repose on the sheltering wings of your presence, in the lofty levels of the holy and pure who shine as the brightness of the firmament, unto the soul of Sam Glassman, Shmuel ben Anshol, who has gone to his world and for whose memory we pray. May his repose be in paradise. May the Master of Compassion bring him under the cover of God's wings and bind his soul in the bond of life. May the Lord be his heritage, and may he rest on his resting place in peace. And let us say, Amen. Those who are joining us heading to the cemetery, we're going to be going to Har Zion Cemetery, located at 1201 McDade Boulevard in Darby, Pennsylvania. Jane and David will be sitting Shiva at Jane's home, 4 Santa Anita Place, Cherry Hill. Visiting hours are this afternoon from 3 to 6 p.m. and 7 to 9:30 p.m. Tomorrow, Friday, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Saturday evening from 7:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., 1:30 p.m. to 5 p.m., and 6:30 to 9:30 p.m.